Hello and welcome to Nailed on FPL with John and Kris. We're going to look at our captaincy tier list today for Gameweek 10. Lots of good options, some of the more premium assets which we don't have in our team. Are they worth a transfer? We're going to look at that. So starting off with some of the key fixtures, we're going to open with Liverpool away to Brighton. Some good options in this one. What are your thoughts on that, Kris?
Yeah, well, obviously we saw Salah play midweek in the Champions League, so obviously he's back fit. So it's obviously a very good option. Lots of managers would have taken him out. Do you bring him straight back in is the question. Possibly not this week because there's lots of good options which we're going to discuss. But if you still got Salah in your team, he's a really good option. If you've got Mane in your team, also a very good option. You never really know with Brighton at the moment. They're a bit up and down, but looks like a good fixture on paper.
Yeah, I do agree with you there, Kris. Both proven goal scorers. I think Salah does edge it for me. We've talked about this a lot in the past, but with Salah on pens and seems to be in kind of better goal scoring form minus the COVID period, I think he goes straight in at an A tier for us. Salah and Mane still a reasonable option. Bear in mind they are on the road to a fairly strong defence. Mane goes in at a B tier.
Yeah, agree with that.
Okay, so on to the next fixture, and this is definitely one of the key fixtures for the weekend. So Man City at home to Burnley. Bookies generally price Man City as 1-5, so a heavily implied chance of them winning this, and it should be quite by some substantial margin. The big question is, who is Pep going to start? It's always a bit of a guessing game. If you have the right player in your team, you could be looking at a very big score. So what are some of the key players we want to talk about?
Well, obviously we get the main man out there. So KDB is obviously the standout option this week for City. He didn't play midweek in the Champions League. He didn't travel, so that you can never say anyone's guaranteed with Pep, as you say. But he's probably the best option. Probably say S tier. Probably Burnley obviously not had a great start to the Premier League this season. They did win last week, but still, I think Pope is also out as well, isn't he? So they're having to play their reserve keeper. So that just makes this a more enticing prospect. So KDB is obviously the clear favourite in an S tier. Then we've got a few other options, but they're quite they're rotation risks, aren't they? Really, John, where you got the likes of Sterling, Aguero potentially playing, and Jesus as well.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, those three are all three brilliant options, and they would be good captaincy picks if it wasn't for the fact that we can't guarantee that they're all going to start. I mean, it's very unlikely you'd see all three of those starting together. So on that basis, if you're looking for a safer way into that Man City lineup, KDB does look like the most likely to play by some way. There's very little doubt there, I think. Factor that in with he could still be on penalties. He did miss his last, which was quite surprising. But he's the amount of upside for KDB. He's going to be the key provider behind the majority of Man City's goals. Also a good goal threat himself. He's a strong S tier. We're going to put Jesus and Aguero both at C tier because of that increased rotation risk. You wouldn't want a 5-minute cameo at the end of the game. That's for sure.
I think even with that is, even if whoever starts out of the two, the other one's likely to come on, with 30, 40 minutes to go, depending on obviously what the score is. So would you want to be captaining either of those, even if you knew who was going to start? Not for me, but probably C tier for those two, do you think?
Yep, so C tier on the two strikers. And then finally, Sterling, for those who have him, he's still an exciting prospect, but we can't ignore the rotation risk there. And on that basis, he goes in as a B tier. More likely to be nailed than the other two, but that's still a present risk.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, so the next fixture on Saturday is the Everton game. So we saw them put 3 past Fulham last week. Obviously, DCL with another brace.
Yeah, so this week they're against quite a nice, a slightly better team, but they are at home still expecting big things from Everton. And as Kris said, DCL is in brilliant form. So proven goal scorer form. He's now, we keep talking about how many goals he's scored, 10 goals this season, which is quite something. And then the key provider, I like to almost refer to him as the KDB of Everton, is James Rodriguez. I mean, maybe that's doing him a disservice. He is incredibly talented and has a lot of involvement in the goals, and will show up with a goal himself from time to time. So both of them are really strong options in my opinion. I struggle to divide them. And if I had to pick one personally, it would actually be James, but I think we have a mild disagreement there.
Yeah, so for me, DCL would probably slightly edge it, just based on the goal scoring form. And James tends to get subbed, doesn't he, with like 15, 20 minutes to go. Has happened a lot this season. So yeah, DCL for me, but probably hard to split them, isn't it, John? So would we say B tier for these two?
Yeah, B tier for the pair, and I think these are definitely quite nice options given their price tag. So good kind of budget options, which are well justified on our tier list.
Yeah. Okay then. So if we move on to Sunday, so Man United away at Southampton. There's only really one person to talk about here, which is Bruno.
Yeah, Bruno Fernandes. So obviously did amazing midweek, scored 2 goals and gave his penalty to Rashford. Could have been 3. And then he returned for all the managers that went for him on the previous week. Yeah. So he's the one to target of any Man U player. My concerns in regards to Man U are they have been overperforming in terms of penalties, which has made up a huge share of Bruno's points. I also want to factor in there against quite a Saints defence that have definitely shown quite a bit of resilience this season. Some mixed results, but some really good streaks of form in terms of clean sheets. So I'm not hugely enthusiastic about Bruno. I think there's better options, but he's definitely high on our list. Would you agree with that, Kris, anymore?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's shown since he arrived in Manchester that for some reason he has a crazy run of really good away form, and that, makes him a good option for me, really, when you look at it, obviously what he's done since then. And he's obviously the man in form for United at the moment. Last week he was unlucky just to get 1 goal, really. I'd probably say A tier for this. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's fair. At the end of the day, I wouldn't be surprised if he turned up with 2 goals and assists. It just strikes me as that kind of fixture. I can see him leading the show again, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he turns up with nothing and Saints keep a clean sheet. I've got mixed feelings on this one, but I think A tier is justified. He's a really strong option this week.
Yeah, agree. Okay, so we'll move on to the big game of the weekend. So Chelsea versus Spurs. Obviously, we've seen, what Spurs can do against a big team, which they did last week against Man City. Kane and Son are obviously the two on the Spurs side that's continue to provide FPL returns even in these big games.
Yeah, and I think lots of people will be persuaded by that argument. They've done particularly well in the games that managers thought they wouldn't do well in.
Yeah.
With that said, this is still a very tough fixture. They're away to one of the best looking defences in the league. And even though they seem to turn up with good form this season, it's not something that I'm drawn to whatsoever. And if you're looking to bring in players like KDB and you're looking to transfer out someone like Son, or say Vardy by transferring out Kane, this is actually, for me, a good time to do it because their fixtures don't get any better. Quite literally, they do not improve from this point over the next few weeks. And they're not good captaincy options this week. They could turn up with a goal, but if you're going by the fixture, which I strongly endorse, in the long run, that's going to pay dividends. There's better options out there.
Yeah. So we'd probably put the pair of them on the D list then, wouldn't we?
Yeah, you should have better options. Lots of people have someone like DCL in their team, and leagues apart from versus Kane, given the strength of the fixture. So D tier is fair, I think, for those two.
Yeah. Okay. On the Chelsea side, then, is there anyone you want to pull out?
We'll mention Werner, I think, is the most viable option, but it does look like Abraham might be starting up front, and if Werner's on the left, it's not going to be as enticing. Jorginho was also playing as well, which might mean there's some risk of Werner taking a penalty. Not a terrible option, but it's still not a great fixture for Chelsea, and another one to avoid there. So not really from that fixture. There should be better options in your team.
Okay then. So moving to the last game of Sunday then. So Arsenal versus Wolves. I guess we've got to mention Aubameyang. Obviously, he's not been in the best form this season, but it's a home fixture. He returned to playing through the middle last weekend, and some managers are still on him, so he's potentially a good option here and on pens.
Yeah, he's not the most fashionable of options right now, is he? But I think he's still a really high chance to score a goal. The bookies still really favour him in his likelihood to score. And as you said, penalties is very valuable this season. Wouldn't be surprised if he turns up with a few goals. So if you've got all that money invested in Orba, I wouldn't be panicking and saying, right, I need him out my team. This is an opportunity to even captaincy him. So yeah, he's fairly high up the list for me. What are you saying? B tier on this?
Yeah, B tier. I think because Wolves have obviously got a solid defence. I don't know if Cody's back or Sace is back. I'm not sure.
Well,
potentially
I believe
not. Is it because the isolation period is probably quite long? But
Wolves played a new lineup and that seemed to work quite well for them. So we might even potentially see Kilman out of the squad for the time being if Nuno sticks with this new lineup, which is quite confusing, but it might mean that there's more upside in the short term whilst they're trying new things out. So an interesting one to watch that.
Yeah. Okay then. So we go to our last fixture we're going to discuss then. Leicester versus Fulham. This looks nice, doesn't it? Based on Fulham's record so far this season.
If we learned one thing from the previous week and almost the season as a whole, it's oppose Fulham because they do look really quite vulnerable at the back. And someone to take advantage of that, Jamie Vardy, who looks, I mean, if you're going to take any Leicester asset, even though like Maddison and Barnes will be looked at as strong options, they always feels like there's a bit of a rotation risk there with those two. But Vardy didn't start the other night in Europe, so he should get the start here and he should do really well. So this is one that I'm definitely going to target myself. He's almost a priority pick, and Vardy for me goes in at an S tier.
Yeah, completely agree. And this Fulham fixture over the next few weeks is going to be vital, isn't it? I think City have got them next week at home, and then Liverpool play them the following week. So if you can navigate those, fixtures to get those City players in or get Salah in game week 12, that's a really good option. I think Vardy should be the priority this week if you can get him in. Obviously, we spoke about Kane and Son. Those are the sort of players that you have to take him out for, but we think it's worth it based on obviously Vardy being a really good captaincy pick over the next few weeks, especially tomorrow.
Yeah, I think those are solid moves, and for those that like to plan ahead, which is 100% the way to go in FPL, look at the Leicester fixtures, look at the Man City fixtures, and you're going to want to be on some of their feature players. My only word of warning is if you want to bring in the likes of Vardy and you want to bring in KDB, you might also want to factor in 3 weeks' time when, as Kris said, Liverpool play Fulham and getting in the main man, Salah. And if you want all three of those, that might be quite tricky to juggle. So it's worth planning ahead for that, navigating the fixtures, and hopefully a really strong week with the right captaincy pick this week.
Yep. Cool.
So thank you very much for tuning in. Best of luck.
Cheers, guys. See you later.